Hello scholars, and welcome to Decimal Operations with Adding and Subtracting. So far we've talked about rounding decimals to the nearest whole number and also to the nearest tenth, as well as estimating before you add or subtract. Today we're going to focus on adding or subtracting the actual decimal numbers. Some tips for success before we get started. Important thing is take your decimal numbers and go ahead and stack those, making sure to always line up the decimal places. Then you can just add and subtract as usual. Finally, once you have your answer, you're going to bring the decimals straight down, and we'll go ahead and review these. Again, stack your numbers, line up the decimals, add and subtract, and then bring your decimal straight down into your answer. Our example number 1 is 19 and 53 hundredths plus 4 and 72 hundredths. We've been talking about decimals and different numbers that we use in real life. The most important one for us and the ones that we're most familiar with is when we think of money. So we're going to go ahead and take these two numbers, 19 and 53 hundredths and 4 and 72 hundredths, and change it into money. So if we think of money, it would now be $19.53 plus $4.72. So our first tip from our tips for success would be to stack our two numbers and line up those important decimals. We want to make sure we're lining up the hundredths or the pennies, the dimes or the tenths, as well as the ones place and the tens place. Once you've done that, like we mentioned before, you're going to add like usual. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 7 is 12, leaving the 2 in the tens place, taking the 1 over to the whole dollar ones. 9 plus 4 is 13, plus 1 is 14. Here's our 4, carrying the 1, and 1 plus 1 is 2. We drop the decimal when we're done, so we have $24.25. So when we're dealing with decimals, whether it's in money or something else, we have that 24 wholes, a decimal, and then our parts of a whole. Right now we have 25 cents or 25 hundredths. So taking out that money symbol, or that dollar sign, we have 19 and 53 hundredths plus 4 and 72 hundredths equals 24 and 25 hundredths. Let's go ahead and try another example. This time we're going to do 6 and 18 hundredths plus 49 hundredths. Again, we're going to think of money to make this easier for us and something we're familiar with. So we're going to change it to $6.18 plus 49 cents. Notice I added this placeholder, this 0, because we have 0 wholes or $0 in this number. First thing, as in our tips for success, would be to stack our two numbers and line up those decimals to make sure we're adding the appropriate columns or place values together. So we're going to add like usual. And in this case, we're going to say 8 plus 9 is 17, leaving the 7 in the hundredths or the pennies place, and then carrying over that 1 into the dimes or the tens place. We have 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 1 more is 6, nothing to carry over, and then 6 plus that placeholder of 0 is 6. So we end up with $6.67. Don't forget to bring down that decimal exactly where it is, as long as those decimals are lined up correctly. So once we remove those dollar signs, we can have $6.18 plus 49 hundredths equals 6 and 67 hundredths. Now we're going to have you try one. So go ahead and write this problem down. You're going to write 37 and 6 tenths plus 5 and 73 hundredths. Again, that problem is 37 and 6 tenths plus 5 and 73 hundredths. Again, go ahead and think of money and add any extra placeholder zeros that you need to. You're going to also think of those tips. So while you're stacking your numbers, lining up your decimals, and adding as usual, go ahead and pause this video and push play when you're ready to move on. Okay, I hope you had some successful attempts with this problem and weren't too tricked by those extra placeholder zeros that you may have needed for this. So if you turned it into money, you may have had $37.60. If you left it as is, it would be 37 6/10 or 37 60/100, which are equivalent, plus 5 73/100. You could have also added a 0 here if you would like. So adding them up and those decimals, bringing it straight down, you should have gotten 43 and 33/100, or if you did dollars, it would be $43.33. Did you find that same answer? If not, what silly mistake maybe you have made? Go ahead and peek at that. Did you forget to carry over? Did you forget to line up the decimals? Make sure you pay attention to those for the future. Now we're going to be moving on to subtraction. For our first subtraction example, we're going to deal with 13 5/10 minus 2 47/10. Again, we're going to go ahead and think of money. So we're going to change it to $13.50, adding that placeholder 0 in the hundredths or the pennies place, minus 2 47/100, or $2.47. So first thing we do is stack up our numbers and make sure our decimals are in alignment. Then we'll go ahead and subtract like usual. So we're having 2 right here in our ones place, or in our hundredths place, or our pennies place. We're noticing again that placeholder 0 that we had. We're going to have to go ahead and regroup our borrow from the tenths place or the dimes. So I went ahead and borrowed, changing this to 4 in the dimes place, the tenths place, and making the pennies or the hundredths be 10. So 10 minus 7 is 3, 4 minus 4 is 0, 3 minus 2 is 1, and then 1, if you had a 0 here, would be minus 0 would be 1. So at the end, after we bring down that decimal, should be $11.03. Or, going back to the beginning without that dollar sign, 13 5/10 minus 2 47/100 equals 11 3/100. So even though we only did one example of the subtraction, it's the same thing as doing the process when you line up for addition, just your normal addition or subtraction operation. So I want you to go ahead and try this one and see what you remember and what you get stuck on. Let's go ahead and look at 99 4/10 minus 8 65/100. Again, you can think of money. Go ahead and add dollar signs or any placeholders you need so you can subtract correctly. When you're done, go ahead, push pause, and when you're done, go ahead and push play again. Okay, so now that you've had some time to check out this problem, we're doing 99 4/10 or 40/100, which is equivalent, minus 8 65/100. So I went ahead and added that extra place value 0, since really there is nothing there for the hundredths place. But because I had to subtract 5 from 0, I had to borrow from the tenths place, changing 4 to a 3, and carrying over. So now I have 10 minus 5, which gives us 5. Now in the tenths place, we had changed it to a 3, but unfortunately I can't subtract 6 from 3. So I had to go and regroup or borrow again from the ones place, in the whole number, changing this 9 to an 8 and carrying over. So now I have 13 minus 6, which is 7. 8 minus 8 is 0. And 9 minus 0 is 9. Not forgetting to bring down that decimal because I don't have $9,075, or if it was money, $9,000 or $9,075, but I have 90 and part of a whole, so 90 and 75/100. Were you able to find this answer on your own? If so, awesome. If not yet, that's okay. What silly mistakes did you make? Did you line up those decimals correctly? Did you regroup correctly, subtract correctly? As long as you can figure out your silly mistake, that's the goal here. So we're going to go ahead and remember, if you want to take these notes down, stack your numbers, line up the decimals, add or subtract like usual, and don't forget to bring the decimals straight down into your answer. Now here's your independent practice for this evening. You're going to go ahead and write these 4 problems down, and then take your own notes and do your own work, and we'll be reviewing the answers together in class tomorrow. So don't forget to stack and line up your decimals, add any place value zeros to that might be helpful for you, and to bring those decimals down at the very end into your answer. I wish you great luck and success. Hopefully you feel comfortable with what you've seen today, and we'll talk about it more tomorrow. Have a great evening.